Good morning, my friend. Good to see you again. Take a seat, take a drink, and let me tell you the tale of the dead moon. A long time ago, before the days of electricity and good roads, the Lincolnshire cars were crisscrossed with bogs. They were swampy and dangerous marshes, and you had to know your way about or you'd fall into a patch of sinking mud and never come out alive. But if they were dangerous by day, they were much worse by night, because bogles and evil things lived in the cars, and they came prowling out at night to lie in wait for passing travellers. There were will-o'-wisps which led a man astray, and ghouls that gibbered and shrieked, and there were dead men's fingers whose touch was cold as ice. They all came out on moonless nights and scrabbled around the cottages till the people of the cars shut their doors and windows tight and prayed for a full moon. The dark creatures of the cars hated the moon. Her bright light hurt them. Now, when the moon learned what was happening in the cars while she was away, she grew very angry and determined to put a stop to it. So one night she wrapped herself in a thick black cloak and, hiding her shining hair beneath a dark hood, stepped down from the sky and came walking across the fens. It was very dark in the cars, and all her brightness was hidden. There were shadows everywhere and voices crying, but she went on bravely, stepping lightly across tussocky grass and quaking mud. And as she walked deeper and deeper into the swamps, witches rode beside her, mounted on great black cats with shining eyes. They shrieked at her and crooked their fingers, but they dared not touch her because of the little silvery light which spilled out from under her hood. Then came the skeletons, dancing and chattering their teeth at her like angry monkeys, and coal-black bogles too, but none could touch her. Spiteful brambles clawed at her with their hooked thorns, and cold fingers brushed against her cloak. But no evil thing dared come nearer because of the light which spilled out from beneath her cloak. Then, as she walked across the cars, a stone turned under her foot, and she put out a hand to save herself. As soon as she touched the ground, a bramble reached up and wound itself around her fingers, holding her fast. While she was struggling to free herself, she heard a voice crying in the dark. It was a traveller. He'd got himself lost from the path, and the will-o'-wisps had lured him further and further into the swamps. He was worn out and despairing, and the shadows were gathering around him, ready to make an end of it. The moon could see the dead fingers reaching up for him, and the witches hovering nearby, and she grew so angry and sorry that she determined to save him. She couldn't free herself from the brambles, but she flung back her head and the hood fell off, and all her light streamed out into the blackness. The dark things cowered back, and the traveller saw the true path shining ahead of him. He struck out for it at once, all his weariness forgotten, and was soon on safe ground again. But as for the moon, she could find no safety. The creeping, sucking plants sprang up to bind her, and the harder she struggled, the tighter they held her. And as the night went on, she grew tired. The black things held back at first, frightened by her light, but little by little, as her struggles grew weaker, her hood fell forwards again, quenching her brightness, until at last there was darkness in the cars. Then they fell on her and took her prisoner. All through the night they yelled and stamped in triumph because they captured the moon, and there was nothing left to withstand them. They quarrelled all night about how they should kill her, but when the first grey light of morning came, they grew frightened and thrust her down into a deep pool and dropped a great flat stone on top to hold her fast. They set 2 will-o'-wisps to guard her and slunk back to their own dark holes to wait out the day. Next night the people of the cars watched for the moon, but she never came, and the things of the bog roamed free. And as dark night after dark night passed, the bogles grew bolder. They came stalking amongst the houses, tapping at the windows and yelling to get in. No one dared set foot on the bogs for the sake of their lives, but still the moon did not return to protect them, and at last the people of the cars began to fear she would never come back. So they went to a wise woman to find out what had happened. But though she searched with book and crystal and brewing pot, she could see nothing but darkness. So she told them to put straw and salt and a button by their doors, and bring her any news they might hear. Of course, the people talked about it by their firesides and out of doors, wherever they met, until presently one man said, "I reckon I know where the moon is," though I was too frightened to think of it. And he told them of how he got lost in the bogs one night, and how the moon shone her light to bring him home again. So back they went to the wise woman, and she looked in her crystal, and this time, though the ball was dark as smoke, in the centre was a glimmer of light, and she guessed what had happened. "Are you sure you dare to seek the moon?" she asked. "It will be very dangerous." "We must," they said. "The bogles are rattling at our doors now, and the shadows come out even before dusk." "Then you must go into the bogs at night," said the wise woman. "You must put a stone in your mouth and a hazel twig in your hand, and you must speak no word aloud till you're safe home again. Look for a tombstone and a cross and a candle, and there the moon will be." Well, they were very frightened of the marsh at night, but the men knew things would never be right till they got the moon back. Their women cried and begged them to stay safe at home, but the very next night they set out. It was quiet in the boglands. Each man carried a lantern, and the dark things crowded outside the light, muttering and shuffling. Cold hands brushed them, and mud sucked at their feet, but they went on, further and further, speaking not a word. They were very much afraid. Then they stopped. Before them was a deep pool, and half in and half out of the water lay a long flat slab for all the world like a tombstone. A crooked branch formed a cross above it, and a will-o'-wisp flickered on either side, so they knew they'd found a place, and they knelt down and said the Lord's Prayer, silently because of what the wise woman had told them. Next they set their hands to the stone. Down swooped the bogles, ghouls, jack-o'-lanterns, and all, screaming and chittering, but they dared not come too close because of the Lord's Prayer. The men heaved up the stone, and as it rose they glimpsed a strange, beautiful face looking up at them. A dazzle of light shot up to the sky, and all the horrors shrieked in dismay and scuttled back to their holes. Then the moon was shining down from the heavens, and the path showed clear as day. So, forever after, the moon has shone her best in the cars, because she knows all about the evil things that live there, and she remembers how the men of the cars went out to find her when she lay buried there. And so ends the tale of the dead moon. I hope you enjoyed the story, and if you did, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Thank you for your company, my friend. I hope you have a safe journey home. May the moon light your way safely in the darkness.